Well, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, we are with Jacob McGill. Welcome to the show, my friend. You are health expert extraordinaire.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
You know, we have been working on the board there, and I've been very, very impressed about what you got a lot of stuff going on. So tell me something. Outline your story. You know, what, upper left-hand corner where we were talking about your grandmothers. Can you let us know what was happening between your grandmothers, the one grandmother versus the other, and how you came to, and also your accident? So can you just take us through that wonderful adventure, please?
For sure. Absolutely.
Thanks.
So, I mean, starting with the beginning, obviously, I was born first. Everybody starts there. Mm-hmm. But what came out of that is I was fortunate enough to have a childhood with fairly young parents, and they both had relationships with their parents. So I get to spend a lot of time with my grandparents. My father's mother, my grandmother, or my English grandmother, we lived closer to her. And one of the things that was the greatest part about summer vacation throughout childhood was how each grandchild got a week with grandma and grandpa in the city.
Nice.
Now, that was a bonus on several levels. I mean, when you're that age, cable television, hands down, right? Those cartoons on Saturday mornings were highly indulgent, and that was something that we got away with a lot. Grandparents are there to spoil children. My own father keeps on threatening that himself. Yeah. On the other hand, my other grandmother, my mother's mom, my Polish grandmother, she lived in southern Alberta. It was quite a ways away and a bit of a drive. So we got together at least 4 or 5 times a year, and then she would also always come for a visit to us. And really early on, I'd say around 10 years old, I started to notice a bit of a difference. I mean, when you're young, adults are kind of like superheroes. You know, we have maybe unrealistic expectations or beliefs about our parents, like they don't necessarily get tired or have problems, or because they're always there to kind of take care of us and solve or provide solutions or support to everything that we need as children. And we have this makeup, this belief about them. And grandparents kind of fall into that category by default. But right around 10 years old, I started to notice these distinct differences between my two grandmothers. In terms of my Polish grandmother, she was a dynamo. She never got tired. She was continuously up to something and literally unstoppable. Not just the belief about unstoppable that we have as children about adults, but she really was unstoppable. My English grandmother on the other side, she seemed a little bit more frail, and maybe a little bit weaker, and it's not that she didn't do stuff, but categorically there was a start and a finish to everything.
Right.
Christmas dinner was this thing that began and then ended, and like a lot of women in those generations, I mean, you could help a little bit. I definitely came from a take your dishes off the table to the sink sort of a family, but really there was a time and place for stuff like that, and she would have it that she would do something and then she'd get tired. And that was a big contrast between the two of them. That's a contrast that I saw continue throughout their entire lives, all the way up to make a long story short, to the end of their lives. In the last 5 years of both of their lives, both of them actually resided in senior style condos with slight assistance, meaning they had like a mess hall or dining on the main floor and that kind of stuff. But they lived within a couple blocks of each other in West Edmonton. And for my English grandmother, it was really a continuous downhill slope. She went from one level of care to the next until finally she spent her last year and a half in a palliative care center. And her quality of life just diminished right till her very last day. My Polish grandmother, on the other hand, was completely vigorous, active, always up to something, and really kind of continuously maintaining a similar quality of life throughout my entire life. I never saw it change for her at all. When she left Lethbridge and moved to Edmonton and got into this senior's condo, she had a little concrete terrace. And so there were a couple planted pots, but that really wasn't enough for her. And so, yeah, it's a family story, but essentially within a week of moving in there, sometime in the spring, she had marched the 16 blocks over to my auntie's house. I think mostly because it was what was available to her, and ripped up the entire backyard and planted a garden.
Really?
And she was like that. She would walk to the church and back twice, 3 times a week, volunteering in the kitchen there. She was always doing something. And if you tried to sit her still on occasion, then she would, but busy hands, you know. She'd be knitting something. She'd turn on a dozen pairs of slippers in an evening. And that was that thing that I've really started to notice. There's this contrast and difference in their ability to live a quality of life and the quality of life that they lived. So that really is what got started for the story of my 2 grandmothers and what they taught me, and how that created for me that there's a choice, that we actually have a say in what our quality of life is like, although we don't always have a say in the length.